You may have heard of fat taxes on airlines. There's at least one, Samoa Air. Has a fat tax where if you weigh more, you have to pay more to be on the plane. And there are certainly other airlines that have considered doing this at various times. Now, they're extremely controversial, especially in America, where we're both fatter than average and also very defensive about being fat. But it sort of makes sense, kind of. I mean, the plane does require fuel. You use more fuel if the plane is heavier, and so if you are unnecessarily, I guess, burdening down the plane, maybe you should pay more. We'll have that debate on another episode. But an Indian airline known as Go Air is instituting sort of a fat tax, but not on their passengers, and that's what makes it so interesting. So in the future, they're only going to be hiring women, and the reason is that women on average are 15 to 20 kilograms lighter than men. I don't know what employment laws are like in India. I would have to imagine that would not be legal here, especially because it would seem to be a bullshit reason to only hire women. If it was happening in America, and probably in India as well, we would assume it has to be because we think that the women are sexier, that more people will want to fly in the planes, or something like that. That's sort of the stereotypical idea of stewardesses, which we've moved past to some extent. You'll have to watch episodes of Mad Men to see it in the present day. Now, the airline's CEO, the Go Air's CEO, Giorgio Deroni, who I have to imagine is not an India native, he says that this is not the only way that they're trying to cut weight. That he also said the size of in-flight magazines has been reduced. The potable water tanks are no longer being filled to capacity, as only 35 to 40% of that water is actually used. Now, that also sounds kind of BS. I have to imagine that cutting out a couple pages of the magazine isn't going to relieve the plane of a lot of weight. But if you believe their math, changing out the male stewardesses and flight attendants for females will save them up to $500,000 a year, which is certainly a considerable amount of money. But I would have to imagine that that's not, for one, the best way to save money, possibly not the actual reason they're doing it. I think that it possibly is just a way of advertising that, look, there's a lot of women on the plane or something like that. And the reason that I believe that, and the reason that I think that this would never work in America, is if your reasoning for only hiring women is that they're 15 to 20 kilograms lighter, why don't you just have a policy where you only hire light people? Or a man who weighs 15 to 20 kilograms lighter than the average man could be hired. Because the policy as it stands seems to indicate that even if you're lean as a rail, as a man, you cannot be hired. And there certainly seems to be nothing there that if a very voluptuous woman were to apply for Go Air, that she would not be accepted. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Interesting note, they are of course not going to be applying this to current employees, so if you're a guy or perhaps an overweight woman right now working for Go Air, you're not going to get the boot. But in the future, it will have an influence on how they hire. As the price of airline tickets goes up, as other airlines attempt to find ways to save money, it's going to be interesting to see if this spreads stateside. They've pretty much done everything they can do here, from making you pay for every single piece of luggage you check, to making you pay for the Sprite and the nuts that you eat on your flight. Maybe this is a bold new world for airlines to go in.